Hi, everybody. Thank you, Erson. I'm delighted to be hosting this panel today. We will be discussing the challenge of females in industry, and in particular in the automotive industry, which is in line with Choose to Challenge. What I really thought was interesting is, diversity doesn't happen just at a female perspective, but here my four colleagues hail from four parts of the world, four different cultures, and have different, really diverse and different job roles. But before we go into the questions, I would like each of them just to give an overview of themselves. So Nicole, we'll start with you if that's okay.
Sounds good. Thanks, Georgina. So good morning, afternoon, everybody. My name is Nicole Stevenson, and I am the Vice President of Strategy and Marketing for our automotive segment at Flex. I'm based in Detroit, Michigan, so in the US. I've been with Flex going on about 9 years now, and I'm responsible for the automotive segment strategy, mergers and acquisitions, technology partnerships and investments, and also run our global marketing team. I'm really happy to be here today and really to see a lot of energy and excitement around women in automotive. Thank you.
Thanks. Now we'll have Melanie, please.
Thank you, Georgina. Yeah, so my name is Melanie Schüttenberg. I'm the Vice President of Business Development for the automotive sector in Europe. So my team is based all over Europe. I'm based in the design center in Stuttgart and handling and acting out of here. And with that, I will hand over.
Thank you, Leanne.
Hi, thank you, Georgina. Hi and welcome, everybody. My name is Leanne Wild. I run the Project and Portfolio Management Office here in Flex. I've been with Flex about 9 years now and work primarily with the IT organisation. Really excited to be here today and looking forward to talking to you all. Thank you, Georgina.
Thanks, Leanne. And Edith, please.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Georgina. My name is Edith Bekeshi. I'm the head of talent acquisition at Flex, responsible for the EMEA region, and I'm located in Budapest, Hungary.
Thank you, Edith. Now, we'll just go back to Nicole. Could you provide the audience a little bit of background of how you came to Flex and what were the challenges you met on the way, particularly from a female perspective?
Yeah, sure. So essentially, prior to coming to Flex, I spent about 15 years at various automotive tier 1 and tier 2 suppliers. And although throughout those years as my job role and my responsibilities were increasing, I was always sort of missing this passion and desire that I had to get into something more like entrepreneurship. And then this opportunity came up with Flex, and I never even heard of the company at the time. But as I was talking to my, interviewing with my then soon-to-be boss, he was talking about just the innovative culture, the cross-industry access that Flex has, and then also telling me about how impactful the role was going to be, that I would be making differences and change. So I was on board right away. So the second part of your question, talking about challenges I met along the way, I'd say probably no different than any other female in a very male-dominated field like engineering, where I started off, or a segment like automotive. This industry is obviously very male-dominated. So things like having a child and raising a child, trying to work, so balancing that work-life thing, and trying not to feel guilty and not being the adequate mom, or having the occasional difficult colleague that might not appreciate a female in a leadership type role, and kind of adding a little bit of headaches to your everyday life. But I think to me, what's more important to the challenges is how we actually address them, and what we do, and take those challenges and use them to fuel our fire and persevere. And some of the things I did is really, and I still do, is really making sure that I get my voice heard all the time, speak my opinion, always achieving my job goals, continuing to raise the bar for myself, taking on challenges, never getting too comfortable in one position, and of course, always making sure that I'm making a meaningful impact on things that I'm working on.
Great, thank you, Nicole. I mean, I think it's interesting what you say about, the female being in the particular automotive industry, and I think that kind of is a nice segue into Melanie, because she basically leads business development in Flex Automotive for Europe, which is impressive, not impressive that she's a female, but it's impressive in the role itself. So Melanie, I think a lot of the women will be interested in your role in particular because of the automotive in Europe.
So let me take that from two different angles. As I said, so my team is doing business development, account management, and partnerships in parallel. So spread it over all Europe. We are more or less divided into different teams. So the one team is caring about OEM business, where we actually working on own design products. And the other half of the team is working for tier customers, where we are mainly involved into, we call that white box business. This is pure manufacturing business. And with that, if it comes to products, we are talking about that ACES structure. And I think some of you might be familiar with. That is about autonomous connectivity, electrification, and smart technology. This is where we are integrated in our whole product range within. So in the design center in Stuttgart, which is only one of a lot of design centers in automotive, we have 3. Actually, in Stuttgart, we are today focused on electrification. So it could be that you are involved with us on a 48-volt DC-DC converter. And on the smart tech, it is more about the lighting business. That could be ambient lighting, and that could be overhead consoles within. And our future path that we want to raise up here within Europe is about autonomous computing systems. So we are actually doing that in Asia as well as in the NAFTA region. But for Europe, that is just to finalize the whole puzzle within. Thank you, Georgina.
That's interesting. And how do you think diversity plays into that? Like, what's your views on that?
Great question, and one of my favorite questions. So let me answer that from a more global corporate perspective. So honestly, here at Flex, we do not only want to have like storytellings about diversity and inclusion. We don't want to have just here wallpapers in the back telling about diversity and inclusion. We really want to live that. So for me, the kickstart was when our CEO, and it's a she, Revathi Advaiti, joined Flex. It's like 2 years ago. So she is all about diversity and inclusion. She lives that. She thinks about the strategy. She has a plan where to go to. She's interested in the needs of every and each employee on that. So she is really heavily engaged in that one. I am a member of the Global Inclusion Council. That is like 12 people working together with Revathi. So our CEO, I'm reporting to Revathi in that role. And it is, like I told, we are talking about structure, the organization, what rules do we have to set up. So, and here for us, diversity and inclusion come in completely different color shades. So that is about women. This is about Black Lives Matters. This is about Latins. This is about people with disabilities. This is about even LGBT. This is about veterans. So we don't exclude anything. It's all about focus on employees which are part of a minority group, which needs support and focus. So, and what are we doing here? And of course, of today, let's talk about women. So here we go in 2 different directions. The first thing is that we are doing is we are looking for increasing the share of women at Flex. And that is mainly in the indirect labor area, which is like engineering, business development, global program management. And I know Edith is going to talk about that later. So this is what we want to do at one hand. And for me, goal fit is like having a 50-50 at least. That's the target to be honest. So, and on the other hand, we really care about the women that we already have inside Flex. So what are we doing here? We are really pushing them on their career ladder. This is the one thing. On the other hand, we are working on boundaries that they are foreseeing day by day, and in specific in automotive, and I know what I'm talking about. So, and within that, it's all about unconscious bias. So here even we are training our management on that to get visibility on what is that, when do you meet that, how do you have to react to that. So it's a holistic approach towards that topic. And it's not only that, so Revathi itself has pulled up a whole organization supporting that, and that is divided into ERGs, and we will hear more about that. I hope I answered. Thank you, Georgina.
Great. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned ERG, which I'm familiar with, but I know Leanne is actually driving this extensively. So Leanne, will you give us an overview of what ERG is, please?
Hi there, Georgina. Yes, so ERG is an employee resource group. We have about 7 in Flex, to echo what Melanie said, focused on some really diverse groups, but we do have 2 focused particularly at women. So we have Women in Tech, led by Misha, who sits in San Jose, and we have Women in Flex, led by Ashley, who's also based in America. But we have great teams that work to manage those ERGs, and it's not by accident that I find myself representing, Europe. When Misha reached out to me to lead Europe, obviously I was fully on board. When I look at my own journey of how I've got to where I am today, it's a very non-traditional linear path, and so I'm a great advocate for paying it forward, and a great advocate and passionate about how we can empower and grow the women in the workplace. And I look back, over the years, and I've been at Flex 9 years now, but when I left school and started on my career path, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I couldn't project myself sort of 20 years down the line and think, I'm passionate about this, or I wanted to do that. So I fell into a skill. I went to university, I studied accountancy, rapidly realized I wasn't particularly competent at it, and so didn't enjoy it. And I own that, it wasn't the right move for me. But again, I got married, I had children. It was a life-changing experience becoming a mother, and it really does change you. And it did get me to think about, what do I want to do? Where do I want to be in 20 years from now? And so I took my education and I got my teaching certificate, and I went to teach, because whilst my children were young, to echo what Nicole was saying earlier, you don't want to be looked at strangely for wanting to work, but actually if you're wanting to use your mind and do something more and it not impact on your children, I believe those choices should be available to women. If you want to work, and that's fine too. So I taught for a few years, and as I found my children getting older, I realized that, teaching wasn't where I saw myself in 20 years time. And I liked it, but I wasn't passionate about it. And so I took a huge decision to go back to university at 30 as a mature student. But actually it worked out, to be one of the best decisions I ever made. And I can honestly say that, 18 years later, I'm as passionate today about project and program management as I was then. And, whilst my story is really very much that non-linear career path, I would say embrace your journey and make decisions that best suit you. And, there's no right or there's no wrong. And so I think for Flex now, for me, to be a part of the ERGs and to be able to represent women and pay it forward is really, really important. And what's great about this panel here today is that we all advocate that and we all live and breathe that. And I'm really, really proud of not only my colleagues here on the call with me today, but obviously all my colleagues in Flex as well, who are great ambassadors for supporting women in the workplace.
Thanks, Leanne. I think I like your expression, pay it forward. And I think Nicole is another example of that, because she started on the technical chemical engineering perspective, and now she leads strategy and marketing for one of our biggest segments. So Nicole, could you give the audience how your perspective of that, and maybe how networking might have helped, because this is what this session is about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think similar to Leanne, and it doesn't come easy for everybody, but really at some point trying to find out where your passion is. I think that's super important. At some point during your career, it can change, and most times I think it does. But for me, despite my early interest in technology and engineering, I always had this deep fascination with the business side of things, and specifically, how some companies were winning and other companies that were basically the same were not succeeding. And so, what was the difference? And so eventually it became really clear to me that I needed to be a part of that. And I wanted to be a part of the team that actually was creating and implementing the strategies that were actually driving the company's operational plans. So I needed to make a shift, right? So how did I do that? And outside of the obvious, getting the education that you need for that type of thing, You know, I found the best way to get myself involved was really, one thing is always volunteering for assignments. So, you know, even if they're super challenging and completely outside of my purview, you know, don't be afraid to take on challenges. Also, you know, again, being very proactive with my career development planning. You know, it's not going to happen for me. I need to be the one that's really going after it and making those changes and putting together the steps to make that happen. Seeking out the right contacts in the different areas that I'm interested in, and trying to get involved with them, looking for mentors in that area. And again, like Georgina, like you're saying, and really it's so important to have a network and to always be developing that network and leaning on it throughout all stages of your career.
Thank you, Nicole. I'm going to pose the last question to Edith, because I think it's what many people might want to know here. You lead talent acquisition for EMEA. You do a great job at it. What do you think Flex has to offer in the role?
Yeah, I can share my experience and you know, in my profession. So if I consider my profession, the culture of the company is extremely important. And what I've seen at Flex from the very beginning was absolutely positive, and I was absolutely impressed. But I experienced even during my my interview process was showing me that how diverse the Flex culture is, because I had interviews with colleagues from Asia, from Americas, and from multiple European countries. So it became clear to me that Flex is a global company with an extensive focus on diversity and inclusion. So when I was offered the job, it was no question that I make that move and relocate from Budapest to Vienna and join the international team there. And then about 3 years later, my situation changed, and the company was open for me to move back to Hungary and continue to do my job from there. And for me, this was an absolute proof of the high level of inclusion and appreciation of the different cultures and employee needs. So it gave me, this experience gave me, and many before, the additional reassurance that I'm at the right place. And if I need to mention some challenges in my role, I can echo my colleagues, and Melanie mentioned many examples where Flex is doing very well on diversity in general, but one area that we are absolutely challenged with is creating the gender balance in our engineering teams. And we are here. I would love to connect with the participants of this event and hear from you, hear from everybody that, you know, how and what is important for you, what you are looking at when you are in a career changing job, what is important for you. I would love to learn from everybody on this conference. And I wouldn't be a recruiter if I didn't invite everybody to join our virtual booth and have a discussion around what Flex does in automotive, what are our open opportunities, or just check out our website, the flex.com website, or our landing page for our open positions. Thank you.
Great, Edith, thank you. And I know people will hopefully go to the expo. I know we're out of time here, but I just want to ask one question, and it's quite an interesting one that came in, and I want to ask this of Melanie. How do you deal with the bias of that we cannot be good at engineering? And you know, it's an interesting one. Melanie, do you want to think about that from a Stuttgart perspective? Yeah.
So, of course, I think the experience that we had with that is that our utmost critical focus that we need to take on is really to get more women into the pool. So we need more women applying for jobs that we are offering, obviously. So this is where we are actually working on. How does that refer to the bias? So it is actually the case, to be honest, and it could be the case, like if you find yourself back, and other companies would struggle with the same here, to have people that are working since years in special departments, and they are used to work in that men's area where all that men's are around you. So, and you suddenly get 90 applications for that job, but only like, I don't know, 10 women, and that would be a great rate, to be honest. You might find it hard to verify out. So how could the woman at least end up on the top 10 where those 90 other men are? So here my advice would be, if you end up in that critical phase, you should definitively pull ahead 3 of that women straight away to the top. That would gives you just a fair chance. And if you recognize there are gaps at the women because of they might be lack of experience, they might be lack of dedicated knowledge on some computer system whatsoever, think about what could be a plan to really work with them, and that could be a defined working plan through months or whatsoever, that you bring them on the same level. So you might not enter with them on the same level, if it's the case on engineering, if there are not those women that you get on board, which you think they are ready to go, they are ready to work from, but make a plan. What can you do from your side to support them? And that could have several dimensions, starting from mentoring, having a great leadership assigned to that, having a straight plan of what would the education plan be in that chapter, which it seems there's a lack of. So, and then you would be ready to hire that woman. If you meant that serious with having a higher rate of engineering and filled up with women, then you have to do something. It doesn't just come by coincidence. And if you let it go by nature, you will wait another 30 years, and that's too long.
Great, Melanie. Thank you very much for that. Now, so we're going to hand it back to the stage, but I'd just like to say is, you know, from my perspective, I'm not that long in Flex, and not as a lot of people here. It is a great company to work for sure, and it definitely does embrace all things diverse. So I would encourage you to reach out to Edith on that. Thank you. Handing it back.
Thank you.